75 years ago, President Roosevelt signed the Fair Labor Standards Act. This legislation, proposed by Senator Hugo Black in 1932, ultimately ensured that American workers would receive a minimum wage, reasonable work hours, and an end to child labor. President Roosevelt led our country out of the worst economic climate we've ever faced, leading us to decades of prosperity by ensuring that hard work in our nation is met with two fundamental American rights: fair wages, decent working conditions. The minimum wage lifted millions of Americans from poverty and began the step towards joining the middle class. In the 21st century, a fair, livable minimum wage can continue moving our country forward. Even as corporate executives and Wall Street banks earn record profits, too many families are struggling. Americans who work hard, play by the rules, should be able to take care of their families. But too many people in my home state, in places like Youngstown and Lorain, in Portsmouth and Norwood, are working harder than ever and barely getting by. Nearly 1.3 million Ohioans in places like Chillicothe and Mansfield work in a minimum wage job. Working full-time in a minimum wage job in Ohio pays about $16,000 per year because our minimum wage is a bit higher. The federal minimum wage today pays only $15,000 per year, $3,000 below the poverty level for a family of three. Not much to live on, not for families trying to put food on the table, fill up the gas tank, send their children to school, provide a safe place for them to live. The minimum wage in this country should be a livable wage. That's why I'm fighting to pass the Fair Minimum Wage Act. It would raise the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour in 3 95-cent increments, then provide for automatic annual increases linked to changes in the cost of living. The bill gradually would raise the minimum wage for tipped workers for the first time in 20 years. The tipped minimum wage now stands at just $2.13 an hour. The bill would increase it to 70% of the regular minimum wage. More than 1.2 million people in Ohio would get a raise because of this bill. Millions of people around the country in places like Helena and Butte and Billings would have an increase in their standard of living. The vast majority of minimum wage earners, in spite of what some say in this body, some 88% are adult workers. They're not 16 and 17-year-old high school kids. They're 18 and above, many of them supporting families. More than half are women. 18 million children, nearly a quarter of all American children, have parents who would get a raise. Over the past 2 weeks, I've met with people in my home state who earn low wages. I've listened to their stories. Ms. Walter, a server from Youngstown in Northeast Ohio, struggled to raise 3 boys as a single mother. Ms. Day, a cake decorator from Bowling Green, works 2 jobs because the salary of one just isn't enough to provide for her 2 children. She says, "I don't really need a lot, but just a little more." This bill matters. It matters for the grandmother who works the evening shift at a restaurant to babysit her grandchildren during the day. It matters for the elder care aide who takes 2 buses to work. It matters for the working families who work hard and play by the rules. Increasing the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour will also help the economy. It will increase GDP by more than $30 billion over the course of 3 years as workers spend their raises in local businesses. Opponents to increasing the minimum wage love to say that people won't hire, it will cost jobs. It's actually the opposite of that. This economic activity created by more spending in communities as a result of more money in minimum wage earners' pockets would generate 140,000 new jobs over these 3 years. That's why business owners support raising the minimum wage. The owners of Brothers Printing and Synergistic Systems in the Cleveland area pay workers more than the minimum wage. It means they have less turnover. It means their workers have a better standard of living. It helps their community. They do this because it's the right thing to do. It helps help them keep their best employees. It strengthens their businesses and our economy. Plain and simple, Mr. President, ensuring a fair wage is good for America's families. It's good for America's economy. I note the absence of a quorum.